Cowboy healed the native woman, never knowing she would repay him with love that changed his life. Elias Carter had lived most of his life under open skies. On Red Mesa 7, the sky was never just blue. In the morning, it carried a faint silver glow from the planet's thin rings. By afternoon, twin suns painted the horizon in deep gold and soft violet. At night, the stars looked close enough to touch. The land stretched wide and empty, broken only by tall red rock towers and fields of silver grass that moved like waves in the wind. Elias liked it that way. He had once been part of a crew that mapped new planets for the Frontier Authority, but after an accident took his closest friend, he left that life behind. He bought a small ranch at the edge of human settlement and kept to himself. He raised long-horned dune cattle, fixed broken fences, and rode across the plains on his hover saddle, checking the borders of his land. People in the settlement called him the quiet cowboy. They respected him because he worked hard and never caused trouble. But they also knew he did not join gatherings, and he never stayed long in town. Beyond the settlement, past the warning beacons and patrol routes, lived the native tribes of Red Mesa 7. The Kano people had been there long before humans arrived. They were tall and graceful, with skin that carried soft, glowing patterns like moving constellations. They spoke a musical language and believed the planet itself was alive. Many settlers did not trust them. Rumors spread easily in small frontier towns. Some said the Kano could control storms. Others said they guarded something powerful beneath the desert rocks. Elias did not listen to rumors. He believed most fear came from not understanding. One evening, as the suns dipped low and long shadows crossed the plains, Elias rode out to check a distant grazing field. A storm had passed earlier that day, and he wanted to make sure no animals were lost. The wind carried a strange scent, sharp and metallic. His old ranch instincts told him something was wrong. He slowed his hover saddle and scanned the horizon. In the distance, near a broken ridge of stone, he saw smoke rising in a thin, dark line. Elias turned his mount toward it. As he approached, he found pieces of a small scout glider scattered across the sand. The craft was not human. Its surface was smooth and curved, shaped like flowing water rather than sharp metal. Blue light flickered weakly from its cracked core. Beside the wreckage, half covered in dust, lay a figure. Elias dismounted quickly. It was a Kanu woman. Her glowing skin patterns flickered unevenly like a fading signal. One arm was bent at an unnatural angle and a deep cut marked her side. The storm had not caused this crash. There were clear burn marks along the glider's edge, as if it had been shot from the sky. For a long moment, Elias stood still. Helping her would not be simple. If settlers found out he brought a Kanu to his ranch, questions would follow. Some might accuse him of choosing sides in a conflict he did not understand. He looked at her face. Even injured, there was strength there, but her breathing was shallow. Elias sighed quietly. "Can't leave you here," he muttered. He lifted her carefully and carried her to his saddle. She felt lighter than he expected. As he secured her in place, her glowing patterns pulsed faintly, reacting to his touch. The ride back to his ranch felt longer than usual. He kept glancing at her to make sure she was still breathing. When he reached the ranch house, he carried her inside and laid her on his small wooden table. The house was simple. One main room, a sleeping space behind a curtain, and shelves filled with tools and old supplies. Elias cleaned her wounds with warm water and disinfectant. He worked slowly, speaking softly even though he did not know if she understood. "You're lucky I still keep med kits around," he said quietly. "Don't make me regret it." He set her broken arm using a splint made from spare fence boards and wrapped her side carefully. Her skin felt warm, almost humming beneath his fingers. After hours of work, he finally stepped back. She was stable but weak. Night fell outside. The twin moons rose, casting pale light through the window. Elias pulled a chair close to the table and sat down, hat resting on his knee. He told himself he was only staying awake to make sure she survived the night. Sometime past midnight, her glowing patterns brightened slightly. Her eyes opened. They were not like human eyes. They shimmered softly, reflecting light even in darkness. She looked around slowly, confused at first. Then her gaze settled on Elias. He did not move. "It's all right," he said gently. "You're safe, at least for now." She tried to sit up but winced in pain. "Easy," he said, placing a steady hand near her shoulder without pressing down. "Your arm's broken, took a bad hit." She watched his face carefully as if studying his intentions. Her lips parted and she spoke a few soft words in her own language. The sound was like wind through tall grass. Elias shook his head slightly. I don't understand that. She closed her eyes for a moment, then tried again, this time slower. You help me? Her voice was quiet and unsure. Yeah, he answered. Guess I did. She studied him again. There was no fear in her eyes now, only curiosity. Why? She asked. It was a simple question, but Elias did not answer right away. Finally, he said, because leaving someone to die out there ain't something I can live with. She seemed to consider his words deeply. Her glowing patterns shifted gently, forming new shapes across her skin. My name Lyra, she said. Elias, he replied. For a moment, silence filled the room. Outside, the wind moved across the plains, carrying distant sounds of night creatures. Lyra's gaze drifted toward the window. They shot my glider, she said slowly, struggling with the language. Not Storm. Elias leaned forward slightly. Who? Her expression tightened. Hunters, not my people, not yours, he frowned. There had been rumors of off-world mercenaries arriving in nearby sectors. Some corporations were always looking for rare minerals or energy sources, but he had hoped those problems would stay far from his quiet ranch. Why would they attack you? He asked. Lyra hesitated. Her glowing patterns dimmed slightly, as if she was thinking hard. I guard something, she said at last. Important. That was all she offered. Elias did not push further. She was injured and tired. Questions could wait. You need rest, he said, standing up. Talk later. She watched him move around the room, preparing a small heating unit to keep her warm. Every movement he made was careful, steady, without sudden gestures. As he turned to step away, her hand reached out weakly and touched his sleeve. He paused. Thank you, she said quietly. He nodded once. Get some sleep. He moved to his own cot but did not fully rest. His mind was racing. If mercenaries were shooting down Kanu scouts, it meant someone powerful had taken interest in this region, and if they learned she survived, they might search for her. And that meant they might search here. Outside, in the far distance, a faint flicker of light crossed the dark sky. It was gone in seconds, easy to miss. But Elias did not miss it. He sat up slowly, staring toward the horizon. Trouble was coming. He could feel it as clearly as he felt the desert wind. Behind him, Lyra's glowing patterns pulsed softly in the darkness, steady and alive. Neither of them knew yet how deeply their paths were now connected. But in that quiet ranch house on the edge of Red Mesa 7, something had already begun to change, not just the fate of two individuals, but perhaps the future of the entire frontier. The first sun rose in soft gold light, and the silver grass outside Elias' ranch moved gently in. The wind. Inside the small house, the air was quiet except for the low hum of the heating unit. Elias had barely slept. He sat at the wooden table, cleaning his old pulse rifle. He did not like using weapons unless necessary, but frontier life had taught him to stay prepared. Every few minutes he glanced toward Lyra. She was awake. Her glowing skin patterns were steadier now, no longer flickering like before. The colors moved across her arms and neck in calm waves. She was sitting upright against the wall, watching him with thoughtful eyes. You heal fast, Elias said. Our bodies connect with planet, she answered slowly. Her human words were still careful and measured. Land gives strength, he nodded. That's useful out here. She looked around the room, studying the shelves, the tools, the old framed photo hanging near the door. In the picture, Elias stood beside two other men in frontier uniforms, smiling under a different sky. You were not always rancher, she said. Elias paused. No, he admitted. Used to explore new worlds, map M, make sure they were safe for settlers. And now I fix fences. There was no bitterness in his voice, just quiet acceptance. Lyra tilted her head slightly. You hide, that surprised him. From what? She met his eyes. From pain. He looked away first. Before he could answer, a sharp beep cut through the room. Elias turned quickly to the small, calm device near the window. It flashed with an incoming alert from the settlement tower. He tapped it. A nervous voice filled the room. All outer ranchers report unusual aerial activity. Unidentified drones seen near the southern ridge. Stay alert. The message ended. Elias looked toward the horizon through the window. The southern ridge was not far from his land. Lyra's patterns dimmed slightly. They search. For you, he asked. She shook her head slowly. For what I protect. Elias leaned back against the table. You said you guard something important. What exactly is it? Lyra closed her eyes briefly, as if choosing the right words. Deep under stone lands there is core, she said. Energy heart of this region, it keeps balance. Without it, storms grow wild, animals change, land dies. Elias frowned. And humans? Humans suffer too, he believed her. He had lived on this planet long enough to see how strange it could be. Storms came without warning. Creatures sometimes behaved in ways that did not match any pattern. Maybe there really was something beneath the surface holding everything together. And the hunters want this core? He asked. Yes, they believe it gives power. They do not understand balance. Elias ran a hand through his hair. Corporations always want power. Lyra looked at him carefully. You could send me away, tell them nothing. He stared at her for a long moment. If I send you out there now, they'll track you in minutes, he said, and I'm not handing anyone over. Her glowing patterns shifted into a softer color he had not seen before. Outside, a low mechanical buzz filled the air. Both of them heard it. Elias moved quickly to the window. High above the plains, a small black drone hovered, scanning the land with a thin red beam of light. It moved slowly, methodically. They're closer than I thought, he muttered. Lyra stood carefully despite her injured arm. They track energy signatures. My glider left trail. Then we need to break that trail. Elias grabbed his hat and rifle. Can you walk? Yes. They stepped outside together. The air was warm and the twin suns were climbing higher. The drone had not noticed them yet, but it was sweeping toward the ranch buildings. Elias led Lyra behind the barn. There's a canyon east of here, he said quietly. Magnetic rock walls, mess with scanners. If we get you there, they won't detect your energy pattern. You come with me? She asked. He looked at the drone again. If I don't, they'll burn this place down searching. She nodded once. They moved quickly, keeping low. Elias activated a small jammer device he used during storms to protect his equipment. The signal crackled in the air, slightly distorting the drone's scanning beam. The drone shifted direction, confused for a moment. That won't fool it forever, Elias said. We need distance. They reached his hover saddle near the back fence. Elias helped Lyra mount carefully, then climbed behind her. As the saddle lifted off the ground, dust swirled beneath them. The drone turned sharply, locking onto movement. A bright pulse shot from its underside, striking the ground just behind them. Sand exploded upward. Hold on, Elias shouted. He pushed the controls forward. The saddle shot across the plains at high speed. The wind whipped around them, and Lyra gripped the side tightly with her good hand. Another pulse blast struck nearby, sending a shockwave through the air. Elias swerved left toward the narrow canyon entrance ahead. The red rock walls rose tall and jagged, casting deep shadows. The drone followed. Just as they entered the canyon, Elias threw a small metallic sphere behind them. It exploded in a burst of electromagnetic noise. The drone systems flickered. Its red scanning beam flashed wildly before shutting down. It crashed into the canyon wall with a sharp metallic crack and fell to the ground in pieces. Silence returned, broken only by their breathing. Elias slowed the saddle. That was just one, he said. Lyra looked back at the wreckage. They send more, he nodded. Yeah. They traveled deeper into the canyon where the rock walls shimmered faintly with natural magnetic fields. The air felt different there, almost heavy. Elias stopped near a sheltered area between tall stone formations. This will block most signals, he said. For now. Lyra stepped down slowly. She placed her good hand against the canyon wall. Her glowing patterns brightened, reacting to the stone. The land knows we are here, she said softly. Elias watched her carefully. There was something peaceful about the way she stood there, connected to the rock like she belonged to it. You trust me, she said without looking at him. He leaned against the saddle. I don't know why. But yeah, I guess I do. She turned to face him. My people believe bonds are not accident, she said. Energy moves in paths, some cross for reason. Elias gave a small half-smile. You always talk like that? A faint shimmer of light moved across her face. Yes. For the first time since finding her, he laughed quietly. The moment did not last long. A distant rumble echoed across the canyon walls, not thunder. Engines. Elias' expression hardened. That's not a drone, he said. That's a ship. Lyra's patterns shifted into sharp warning lines. They found another trail, she whispered. Elias climbed back onto the saddle and extended his hand to her. Then we keep moving. She took his hand without hesitation. As they lifted off deeper into the canyon system, a dark transport ship appeared high above the ridgeline, scanning the land below. The conflict that Elias had avoided for years was no longer distant. It was coming straight toward him. And this time he was not alone. The transport ship stayed high above the canyon, moving slowly like a hunting bird. Elias guided the hover saddle deeper through the narrow paths, keeping close to the magnetic rock walls. The air felt heavy and small sparks of static flickered around the edges of the saddle's controls. "They cannot scan clearly here," Lyra said, watching the sky, "but they will search ground." "Yeah," Elias replied, "and they won't stop until they find what they want." They rode in silence for a while. The canyon twisted and turned, sometimes opening into wide spaces filled with glowing plants, sometimes narrowing into tight passages where only one person could pass at a time. Lyra looked stronger now. Her movements were more steady, and the glow on her skin flowed smoothly again. "Where is your tribe from here?" Elias asked. She pointed ahead. "Beyond Stone Valley, 3 days travel by foot, less by fast ride." He nodded. "Then that's where we go." She turned toward him, surprised. "You still help me, even now?" He gave a small shrug. "I already made that choice when I picked you up." Lyra watched him quietly, as if trying to understand something deeper than his words. They stopped briefly near a small water spring hidden between rocks. Elias filled his canteen while Lyra knelt beside the water, touching its surface gently. The water shimmered faintly under her hand, reacting to her presence. "You really are connected to this planet," he said. "Yes," she replied softly, "but now I feel the land is afraid." That made him uneasy. "What does that mean?" "Balance weakens, energy shifts." He tightened the cap on the canteen. "Then we need to reach your people faster." As they prepared to leave, a sharp cracking sound echoed from the canyon entrance behind them. Elias froze. Heavy footsteps approached. Not human. From behind a large rock formation, a creature emerged, tall, metallic, shaped like a walking machine with long mechanical limbs. Its red sensors glowed brightly. "A tracker unit," Elias muttered. The machine scanned the area, its sensors locking onto them almost instantly. Before it could fire, Elias grabbed Lyra's arm gently. "Run!" They sprinted toward the saddle. The machine fired a pulse shot that struck the ground nearby, sending dust and stones into the air. Elias pushed the controls hard. The saddle lifted quickly, racing forward between narrow rock walls. The tracker followed, its metal limbs climbing the canyon walls with unnatural speed. "Hold tight," Elias said. He steered sharply around a bend and triggered a small explosive charge attached to the saddle's rear. The charge dropped behind them and detonated seconds later, causing rocks to collapse into the path. The machine crashed into the falling debris, slowing its pursuit. Elias did not look back again. After several minutes of fast riding, they reached a high ridge overlooking a wide valley filled with tall, crystal-like formations. The area glowed softly under the sunlight. He slowed the saddle. "We'll rest here," he said. "Machines won't climb easily through those crystals." They stepped down, both breathing hard. Lyra closed her eyes and stood still, feeling the wind. "My home is close," she said quietly. Elias looked at her. "Good." There was a pause between them. "You risk much," she said. "For someone you did not know." He leaned against a rock. "You keep saying that like it's strange." "It is," she answered honestly. "Many fear my people, many choose safety instead of kindness." Elias thought about that for a moment. "Maybe I just got tired of choosing safe," he said. Lyra studied him with gentle understanding. As the suns lowered toward the horizon, they sat together near the edge of the ridge. Below them, strange alien birds flew between glowing crystal towers. "Why did you leave your old life?" she asked. He hesitated but then spoke slowly. "Lost someone during a mission, bad call. My decision after that didn't feel right leading or protecting anyone." "You blame yourself." "Yeah," Lyra shook her head slightly, "but you still protect." He did not answer. Suddenly, distant explosions echoed across the valley. Both of them stood up quickly. Smoke rose from far away near the direction of Lyra's homeland. Her glowing patterns flashed in alarm. "They reached the tribe." Elias grabbed his rifle. "Then we move now." They jumped back onto the saddle and raced toward the smoke. As they approached, the scene became clear. Several mercenary vehicles hovered near the tribal lands. Energy barriers surrounded parts of the area, and Kanu warriors moved below, trying to defend their home. Blaster fire lit the air. Elias guided the saddle behind a large rock outcrop. "That's a full assault team," he said. "They came prepared." Lyra watched with pain in her eyes. "My people are not soldiers. They protect, but they do not destroy." "Then we give them a fighting chance," Elias said. He quickly studied the terrain. Years of frontier survival taught him to see paths others missed. "See that ridge?" he said, pointing. "If we hit their power generator from above, their shields drop. You plan to fight them?" she asked. "Not fight, slow them." Lyra nodded. They moved quietly along the ridge, staying hidden behind rocks. When they reached the right position, Elias took careful aim at a glowing device attached to one of the mercenary vehicles. He fired. The shot hit perfectly. Sparks exploded from the generator and the energy barrier flickered and vanished. Below, Kanu defenders surged forward, pushing the attackers back. The mercenaries quickly reorganized, searching for the source of the shot. "They'll see us soon," Elias said. Lyra stepped beside him, her glowing patterns shining brighter than ever. "I will stand with you," she said. He glanced at her and smiled slightly. "Guess we're partners now." They retreated down the ridge as more mercenary troops moved toward their position. During the escape, a blast struck the ground near Elias, throwing him off balance. Lyra caught his arm, helping him stand. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," he said, breathing hard. "Thanks." As they reached cover, Elias realized something had changed inside him. The fear of losing someone again was still there, but it no longer controlled him. Instead, he felt focused, alive. Together, they watched as the Kanu defenders regrouped, buying time for their people to move deeper into the sacred lands. The battle was far from over. But Elias knew one thing clearly now. He was no longer hiding from his past, and he was no longer fighting alone. Above them, the transport ship moved closer, preparing for the next phase of the attack. The real test was coming. Smoke drifted across the sacred valley as the battle slowed into a tense silence. The mercenary forces had pulled back slightly after losing their shield generator, but they had not retreated. Their transport ship hovered above like a dark cloud, casting long shadows across the crystal fields and stone structures of the Kanu homeland. Elias crouched behind a large rock, watching through the scope of his rifle. Around him, Kanu defenders moved carefully, guiding children and elders toward safer caves deeper inside the valley. Lyra stood beside him, her glowing patterns shining brighter than he had ever seen. The light moved across her skin in flowing lines, almost like the pulse of the planet itself. "They prepare for final strike," she said quietly. Elias nodded. "Yeah, they lost their quick win. Now they'll go for something bigger." Below them, mercenary troops set up heavy equipment. A tall drilling machine unfolded slowly, its metal arms locking into place. Elias felt a cold weight settle in his chest. "That's not just mining gear," he said. "That's a deep extractor." "They're going straight for your energy core." Lyra's eyes widened. "If they reach it, balance breaks. We can't let that happen." For a moment, neither of them moved. The sounds of machinery echoed through the valley, steady and relentless. Behind them, several Kanu elders approached. Their presence felt calm and powerful. One of them stepped forward, speaking softly in their musical language to Lyra. She listened carefully, then turned to Elias. "They know what you did," she said. "They thank you." He shifted uncomfortably. "No need for thanks, just trying to help." The elder placed a hand over their heart and nodded respectfully toward him before stepping back. Elias watched them go, unsure what to say. "They accept you," Lyra added gently. "That's new," he said with a faint smile. The ground trembled suddenly as the drilling machine activated. A deep humming sound spread through the air, vibrating through stone and bone. Lyra closed her eyes. "The core feels pain." Elias stood. "Then we shut that thing down." He studied the battlefield again. The mercenaries had positioned guards around the extractor, but the terrain offered narrow paths and hidden ridges. "We can get close using the crystal fields," he said. "Their scanners don't work well around that energy." "I go with you," Lyra said immediately. He hesitated only for a second before nodding. "All right, but stay behind me when shooting starts." They moved quickly, keeping low as they crossed the glowing crystal field. The structures rose high around them, reflecting light in shifting colors that made it difficult to judge distance. Elias' heart pounded, but his movements stayed calm and controlled. Years of frontier survival guided every step. As they reached a position near the extractor, they saw the mercenary leader for the first time. He stood tall in dark armor, giving orders with confident gestures. "Big boss," Elias muttered. "Take him down and maybe the rest pull back." Lyra touched his arm lightly. "No killing if possible," he glanced at her. "I try." Elias aimed carefully and fired at a nearby control panel instead of the leader. Sparks flew as the machine jerked violently. Warning alarms filled the air. Mercenary troops turned, searching for the attacker. Time to move, Elias said. They ran toward the extractor, weaving between crystal formations. Blaster fire followed them, striking rocks and sending glowing fragments into the air. Elias slid behind a metal support beam and began disconnecting power cables. Lyra stepped closer to the machine, placing her hand against its surface. Her glowing patterns flared bright, sending waves of light into the structure. "What are you doing?" Elias asked, listening to core guiding energy away. The machine shook violently as the flow of energy destabilized. Lights flickered across its surface. The mercenary leader shouted orders, rushing toward them with several guards. Elias stepped forward, raising his rifle. "That's close enough." The leader stopped, studying him with cold curiosity. "A human rancher standing against a corporation, that's a new one." "Guess you're having a lot of new experiences today," Elias replied. "You protect something you don't understand," the leader said. Elias shook his head. "I understand enough. You break this planet, everyone loses." The leader signaled his guards. Before they could fire, Lyra released a burst of glowing energy from her hand into the extractor. The machine shut down completely with a loud crack, its lights fading. The ground trembled again, but this time the vibration felt different, calmer. The mercenary troops hesitated, unsure. Elias used the moment. He fired a precise shot at the leader's weapon, knocking it from his hand. "Walk away," Elias said firmly. "You lost." The leader looked around, realizing the extractor was disabled and Kanu defenders were surrounding the area. After a tense moment, he gave a small nod to his troops. "Fall back." The mercenary forces retreated toward their transport ship, lifting off slowly until it disappeared into the sky. Silence returned to the valley. Elias lowered his rifle slowly, letting out a breath he had been holding. Lyra stepped beside him. Her glow softened into warm colors. "It is over," she said. "For now," he replied. Kanu people gathered around them, their expressions calm but grateful. Some touched the ground gently, as if thanking the planet itself. As the suns began to set, painting the sky in deep orange and violet, Elias felt something shift inside him. The heaviness he carried for years felt lighter. Lyra walked beside him toward the edge of the valley. "You saved more than me," she said. He shook his head. "We did it together," she smiled softly. "My people say bonds change paths of life," she said. "You changed mine." Elias looked out across the open plains beyond the valley. "I was planning to go back to my ranch after this," he said quietly. "You still can," she answered. "But I will come with you if you allow." He turned to her, surprised. "Your people. They will always be my home," she said gently, "but my path now includes you." The words settled between them like warm sunlight. Elias smiled slowly, something he had not done easily for a long time. "Yeah," he said, "I'd like that." Together they walked toward the waiting hover saddle. Behind them, the Kanu homeland glowed peacefully under the fading light. Ahead of them stretched the wide frontier, uncertain, dangerous, but full of possibility. As they rode across the plains, side by side, Elias realized that one simple act of kindness had changed everything. He had healed someone without expecting anything in return. And in doing so, he had found something he thought was lost forever: connection, purpose, and a future he did not have to face alone.